Eugene here, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about cable attachments. And if you're like me, you like having a tidy gym space. So today we'll be going over which attachments are still on the wall and get regular use, which ones are in the storage bin, and which ones got sold off. We're going to start out with this guy here, which is the Rogue CG1. This one's a bit of a standout. It is expensive at around $195 and possibly more depending on what kind of handle customizations you do. But the lightweight aluminum design, the customizable handles, and the slick design make it feel very premium. The knurling is just right. It has a strong grip but doesn't shred your hands. You can also use it as a landmine attachment, but I don't really do a lot of landmine training right now ever since I got my Titan chest supported row machine. It's very similar in its design to the Rep Cleva Atlas attachment, but the reason I went with this one is because it's flatter overall, and that makes it sit closer to the cable attachment point, which in turn creates more range of motion for rows or pull downs. I like this attachment a lot for any kind of neutral grip work, and I added these 20-degree grips here just to add a bit more grip variety for when I'm doing various pulling exercises. And I just think it looks pretty sick, so I decided to splurge on this one. Next up is the Rep multi-grip attachment. Now this is my go-to for any kind of work with curls, sometimes also for push downs and even lat pull downs. The quality is pretty good, the spin here is very smooth, and the knurling feels great. At 50 bucks, I think it's a pretty good value, and I think it deserves a spot in anyone's cable collection. This is just a standard short straight bar. Where I got it is honestly a bit of a mystery because I don't even remember. It might have come from Temu or something, but I do end up using it a ton. It's great for narrow grip pull downs, rows, bicep curls, tricep push downs, and the list goes on. Currently, some of my favorite exercises with it are pullovers or seated pullovers or seated tricep push downs or extensions. And sometimes I even hook it up to my belt squat and use it for belt squat RDLs or deadlifts. Great cheap piece, doesn't take much space, definitely worth having in the wall. This is a pair of wrist cuffs, or I guess you could also use them as ankle cuffs. These days, I exclusively use these for lateral raises for when I want to take my grip out of the equation and really just focus on the shoulders. Sometimes I'll use these as a cable attachment for cable laterals, and sometimes I'll just loop these around a handle of my multi-flight machine and use them this way. While it is possible to use these on your ankles as well for some kind of leg exercises, I don't really do much with these for my legs right now. Now these here are an underrated gem. What these are Pilates straps. And their construction is basically this double loop design, so you can have a bigger loop or a smaller loop. And what really makes these great is the material they're made of. While the outside material is a strong strap, the inside has this really soft and plush velvety material on it, which feels great compared to a lot of other cheaper attachments I've used. So I've replaced my previous tricep strap with these, and I tend to use these a lot when doing triceps work or anything like face pulls and other things that require straps. 14 bucks. It's really hard to go wrong with these, and I would strongly recommend these for the level of comfort they bring to the attachment. Okay, this one is a bit of an outlier. Not really a cable attachment, but it's a pretty useful tool that I've kept around. This is just a resistance band with some handles on it and a 30-pound rating. Generally, I use this during my warm-ups. Whenever I need to activate anything in my upper body, I'll go through a few movements using the bands just because it's really quick and easy to throw this around the upright and do a few flies and Y raises and so on just to get some activation in my upper body before I start to get to the heavy stuff. This is the ergonomic tricep ball, which you could find all over Amazon or Temu or other retailers. But what surprised me about it is these days I don't actually use it much for triceps, but rather I use it as a core attachment for doing exercises like cable crunches, cable sit-ups, and so on. I find the handles pretty comfortable, and sometimes I also just use it like a regular tricep rope by gripping it here above the handle rather than gripping the handle itself. You can find these for under 20 bucks. So for the money, I think it's a pretty good attachment, and it's pretty comfortable for doing various exercises. These are the OEM GetRx D handles that came with my cable tower, and I was surprised by how decent they were for an OEM piece. They're now my go-to handle for any kind of unilateral work, and they replaced the previous set of handles I was using, which was a set of these J. Bryant handles. The knurling on them is pretty good, the width is good, and I kind of like this black murdered out look that they have, so I've kept these around as my go-to D handles. These are Kensui Swissies, and I love these things. They're cheap, they're lightweight, and they're very versatile. You can use them to change your grip for any kind of a barbell or pull-up exercise, from a standard grip to a neutral grip. They're easy to use with straps because of the open design, and you can also use them just as a regular D handles, and I actually end up using them a lot over the GetRx D handles because they don't add as much length between you and the cable and don't limit your range of motion when that's an issue. So I use these a lot, and given how cheap they are, I strongly recommend these. These right here are actually repurposed CG1 OEM handles. You may have noticed that here I've replaced the OEM ones with angled ones, and since these are a really nice high quality 32mm handle, it seemed a shame to not put them to work. So I got a pair of 1/2-inch eye bolts, screwed them in, and now I've got a great set of handles to do unilateral work for triceps, lateral raises, etc. And these feel pretty good in the hand, and they're not very expensive. I think you can get the set of these handles for 30 bucks, and then eye bolts cost another 10 bucks. So if you've been looking for a nice set of unilateral handles that have great knurling and feel in the hand, and you don't want to break the bank, this is not a bad option. Next up is another big hitter from Rogue. This is the Rogue Arc, and I chose the -5° variant with a 12-inch red handles, and they feel amazing. Right now, it's my favorite attachment to do pull downs. When you're doing them with this -5° angle, you really get this kind of a pulling apart sensation, like you really want to bend the bar at the same time as you're pulling it down. And it really hits the lats in a way that's different from any other bar I've used. And everything about it feels premium, from the way the knurling feels to the way you thread in the handles into the attachment. It just reeks of quality. Now, it's also a modular design, so if I ever want to experiment with different handles or different angles, I just have to change that component. And if you already own some Mutant Metal handles, all you need to buy are the middle arc pieces, so it's kind of a no-brainer. Another key feature is that they have carabiner attachment points for either dual cable systems or single cable systems. So those of you that have dual cable towers or something like the Rep Aries, where you've got 2 cable pull points, you don't have to use a banana clip when attaching this to your rack anymore. I really like this one. Now let's see what's collecting dust in the storage bin. First, we have this close grip pull down triangle from Yes For All. While it's a great piece that I used for years, after I got the CG1 from Rogue, this became obsolete because the Rogue CG1 close grip mimics this one pretty closely, and that one honestly just feels better in the hand. So after this became redundant, in the bin it went. Next up, we have these Horicum Prime knockoff handles. And I bought these, and ever since I've had these, I never really liked them. Part of the issue is that they just add a ton of length to whatever attachment you have. Well, I like the idea of being able to rotate freely once you add the handles here and the swivel shackles. It really adds so much distance that unless you have like a 120-inch pull down point, you really can't get the proper range of motion when doing your pull downs. So this is what it looks like when you just have the carabiners and handles attached to it. And if you want to add the swivel shackles, now you have this situation going on. So yeah, while it's a good in theory, in practice, it didn't really work out, and I didn't bother trying to resell these. They're just so cheap that I'm not gonna spend all that time dealing with Facebook Marketplace people just to try and get $15 back. And since these are already out, these are the J. Bryant handles, which I replaced with the GetRx handles since I got those, so these have now also been relegated to the storage bin. Next up in the storage bin is another piece from that knockoff Prime handle collection, which I think is made by Coricum, which are these tricep spreader handles. Now, I never really liked these because I've decided that I like standard grips and don't really like these paddle type of grips. But again, the other problem is how long these are. And so for doing any kind of a pull down movement, it just added too much length and limited the range of motion. And for doing tricep type stuff, these just never felt right on my wrists. So storage bin they go. Then we have this tricep strap, and this thing is not bad. It was basically free on Temu. I think I used it as some kind of a shopping cart stuffer, but the materials are pretty cheap and it doesn't feel that great on your hands. After I got those Pilates straps, which feel much better, this went into the storage bin. This was another Temu piece of garbage. This was supposed to be a sit-up or cable crunch attachment, and it works like this, and then you hook the cable up and do your movement that way. But the material here is like super abrasive and uncomfortable, would irritate my neck, and frankly, these grips are kind of slippery and not very comfortable either. So I just end up using those ropes I showed earlier for doing those sorts of exercises, and this one goes in the bin. Then there's this V-grip bar. I'm not sure exactly where I got it, but I never really liked it. I have some tendonitis issues in my left elbow, so I've been experimenting with a lot of tricep attachments to see which triggers it less, and this one would just flare up my elbow whenever I used it. Doesn't really get the job done for me, so into the storage bin it goes. And lastly, not pictured here, is a set of the Mag Grip knockoffs that I used to have. They look great in theory and look really cool on my wall, but in reality, I just wasn't using them. They were just kind of heavy, they required a really big carabiner, and I also realized that I prefer to use straps on any kind of heavy pulls, and those things are not designed for straps. So I was able to resell those on Facebook Marketplace and sold those off, and I can't say that I miss them. If you're just starting out building your cable attachment setup, here's what I've learned. 1, start cheap. It's nothing worse than spending $200 on some attachment and then you figure out that it's not comfortable for you or you feel pain using it. So I recommend go cheap and figure out what you like first, and then you can upgrade and get the fancier attachments once you've got it figured out. Focus on more versatile attachments first, like a basic straight bar, easy curl bar, a wide bar, and some D handles, and maybe some of those Swissies before you start getting into the really specialized fancy attachments, because those will cover 80% of the exercises that you need to do. Then I would prioritize ergonomics and feel, because if something's not comfortable, you're just not going to want to use it. So that's honestly my #1 rule, is whatever I'm using has to feel good for me, because then I just won't end up using it. And lastly, don't chase the hype. There's always some fancy new attachment or grip coming out that in many cases costs a lot of money, but you don't have to buy every one. I recommend just figure out what you get the most utility of, what feels good, and go with that. That wraps up my current cable lineup for what's still in the wall, what's in storage, and what got sold off. If you found the video useful, please like and subscribe, and stick around for more upcoming videos on deep dives into home gym equipment, reviews, and awesome DIY hacks. Hope to see you on the next one.